This video is brought to you by Law Excellence IAS Academy.
Dear students, good morning. Welcome to DEEP, Daily Editorial Enrichment Program of Law Excellence R&D. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 12th July 2019. The first article for discussion, that is Jobless Growth becomes more systematic. What is meant by jobless growth? Especially during 2000 to 2008, the economic growth was remarkable in India. But at the same time, this economic growth did not lead to expansion of jobs. You already know that there's a difference between growth and development. The distribution of growth to the benefit of everyone, we call it as development, and this can only happen through the creation of jobs. When growth is failing to create the jobs, we call it as jobless growth. But today this term is more irrelevant because the jobs are low and economic growth is also low. Then we cannot call it as jobless growth. So if the employment has to be revived, the first thing the government has to focus is on revival of the growth, which has to be through the revival of the investments. So that's why I call this jobless growth in this context is a misnomer. But however, authors have used it explaining the levels of unemployment in India. So periodic labor force survey, it has stated that the unemployment rate is 45 years all time high. So when we see the patterns of this unemployment, the first more concern for me was the labor force participation rate. It means the people who want to seek the work are coming down. It can be for different reasons. Probably people may have felt that there are no proper jobs are there for them. Or second, people may be going for higher education. It means more number of years of education will leave the people into or else will make the labor force unavailable for India. So in this case, second, if we observe the patterns of growth, among the different sections of the people, urban women are worst affected, followed by urban men, and rural women. So, urban women and urban educated women, she has a high probability to be unemployed rather than employed in India. And the second, as the educational levels of the people are increasing, then unemployment is also increasing. The third thing is unemployment rate is highest among the educated youth. This is a warning sign for me because we have the phase of demographic dividend today. Then if no jobs are being provided, no opportunities are created, this demographic dividend will convert into demographic nightmare. And then as educational levels are increasing, naturally unemployment rate will be very high among them because their specificity to the job will increase. They want to do only certain kind of work. So in this context, if we are keeping educated unemployed, then that shows that our economy is not maturing and not getting diversified to absorb the skills of these people. So in this context, one way we have to enrich the skills, on the other way we have to provide a way out for these skills. This is how we need to deal with this. And the next is welcome debate on electoral reforms. So here, Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, the former Chief Election Commissioner, what he says is, certain matters were discussed in Parliament related to electoral reforms and it is worthwhile to take cognizance of those. The first is appointment of the Election Commission. So as of now, President of India is appointing the CAC and other election commissioners. What is the reform required? Let it be through a collegium. Tharakunde Committee, Justice Tharakunde Committee, second ARC, everyone have recommended that there has to be a collegium to appoint the election commission. Second, simultaneous elections, the debate is going on. I have covered this in detail in the class. So what is the objective? To minimize the cycle of the elections. But feasibility within the existing constitutional framework is not possible for simultaneous elections, and also it is not in the federal and democratic interests, but it may be good for the governance. That's what we discussed. Next is money power. Electoral bonds. These have benefited only one single party which is in power. 95% of the funds through the electoral bonds are received by the BJP. And then Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Previously, political parties also had a limitation how much they can get from foreign contributions or foreign companies. Today, this is no more existing. And the second, previously a company need to have a minimum existence of 3 years and it can only donate up to 7.5% of its profits to a political party. These are being done away with. It means the floodgates for corporate donations opened up and foreign donations are also being taken by political parties today. This need to be stopped. Next is funding of the parties. So it means today political parties are getting corporate funds. We have to remove these corporate funds and we have to bring in state funding of political parties. Then once the corporate funds decreases, quid pro quo and corruption will come down in elections. And the thing, Obama, what he has tried in the United States of America is crowdfunding, taking minimal donations from the common people. Finally, political expenditure or expenditure of the individual contestants is capped, but not the expenditure of the political parties, which need to be capped. These are the recommendations to reduce the money power. And then most of the political parties lack internal democracy in India. So, to conduct the elections to elect the president of the party, etc., we need to have a proper regulator to look into it. This is one of the suggestion. And then coming to election system, India follows the first past the post system. There can be a chance here, though you get a certain percentage of the votes, you may not win the seats. If you take BSP in 2014 elections, it has won 20% of the votes, but it did not get even one single Lok Sabha seat. So for that matter, we can shift to the mixed system, which is a mix of the first past the post system and proportional representation system. This is in nutshell about electoral. And then picking out plastic. So Central Pollution Control Board has listed 50 plus organizations, to be precise 52, for not following the extended producer responsibility. What is the meaning of this extended producer responsibility? If you are using and producing plastic, you collect it back. It means a producer has the responsibility to take, collect, and recycle, reuse the same plastic. So, this has come through the rules, plastic waste management rules of 2016. How can we implement this? First is incentivize the customer to segregate the plastic. It means whatever the plastic waste is there with him, let him keep it in a separate bin. And how much is the waste he is collecting, pay him proportionately. And second, employ the rag pickers or else employ the plastic waste collection points and collectors, and this plastic waste has to be recycled. And the next is alternative products also need to be developed by the producers. These are the suggestions which are being given over here. Next is treat with caution. You know, in India, the labor laws are very complex. They are too rigid in the formal sector and they are too liberal and in the informal sector. It means in informal sector there are no social security benefits. In the formal sector there is a lot of rigidity. In this case, how to streamline them to bring in better management of the labor and also to provide for economic growth. So in this case, the entire labor laws are being converted into four codes. They are health, safety, occupational and working conditions. And the second is code on wages. Third is social security. Fourth are industrial relations. Already this health, occupation, health, safety and working conditions, this is been discussed by the cabinet. In this, what it says, medical examinations to workers has to be made mandatory. Every worker who is recruited shall be given an appointment letter. And then, women who are working in the night shall be the responsibility, their safety shall be the responsibility of the company. Like that, these are been made. And coming to code on wages, in India, minimum wages vary from state to state. In this context, union wants to bring in uniform minimum wages across the state. It means it will set a bar Any minimum wage which has to be set by the state shall be over and above that particular bar. And third, social security is yet to come. And fourth thing is industrial relations. This is expected to be most controversial. Obviously, the corporate groups are asking for hire and fire. So, in this context, the government wants to raise the bar for layoff. It means today, if any company has a layoff of 100 people, it need to take the prior permission of the government. So now it is being raised to 300. So it means up to 300 people companies can easily lay off without the government permission. So the working groups, work groups and trade unions and communist parties are going to oppose this. What the argument in the economic survey in Rajasthan, rising this has led to better productivity in the companies. So we have to wait and see. As labor relations are dealing with haves and have nots, the state has to be very cautious and careful. And the second, the opportunity shall be increased by the state. It has to focus on the creation of the jobs in India. That's what it is. It is says. Can India make the transition to electrical vehicles? So remember, once electrical vehicles comes up, the automotor industry is going to have bad days. Remember, automobile industry sales already are coming up. Internal combustion engines, the people in this sector have made huge investments. If they are phased out, there will be mass layoffs and it will lead to employment crisis. So what we have to do, this phasing of IC vehicles shall be commensurate with development of infrastructure related to electric vehicles. It means development of battery packages, cell manufacturing, collection of raw material. All this India has to become competitive. It is not like import the battery packages from China and place it over here. Improve the efficiencies in India, bring the production in India. So imports have to be reduced and indigenous industry has to be developed. Then only we can protect the local industry. And then India is pioneer in two-wheeler vehicles. So India can occupy that market even in two-wheeler electric vehicles. So in this context, developing the charging points is very much important. And the next is phasing out of the combustion engines, because most of the people, as they have the vehicles, phasing out those vehicles in the long run is also a challenge. So this have to be disincentivized. In this context, combustion tax, it means a car, how much of the carbon dioxide it is giving out, and tax have to be based on to that. And incentivize the demand side. Buy an electrical vehicle, get the tax concessions, like that, incentivize demand side. And the next, provide for indigenous technology which is cheap and effective. Then when the cost of these electrical vehicles comes down, then we can make the people to shift towards it. This is the essence. PISA committees to empower tribals. So in Telangana state, in Kumaram Bhim district, the PISA committees were constituted. So these PISA committees will guide the Grama Sabha to make decisions. So with regard to the resources of that village, either it is sand mining or whatever, Grama Sabha will make the decisions. With regard to the management of health education in that village, Grama Sabha will make the decisions. Transferring powers to the Grama Sabha will strengthen the local government and self-government in those areas. And this formation of PISA committees is facilitated by nothing but bureaucracy. That is, Integrated Tribal Development Agency, UTNUR, is doing this particular activity. So if we can do this in the entire country, that can empower the tribals. You can use it as an example in your answer. Majoritarian here, secular there. This is about Prime Minister Modi. So Prime Minister Modi, he has developed good relations with Middle East. Saudi Arabia, it has helped India in de-escalating the tensions with Pakistan. And UAE honored highest civilian award on Modi. In this context, Prime Minister Modi is able to develop personal rapport with these leaders, and he is majoritarian on India, and he appeared more secular outside the world. So, it is more a commentary on the Prime Minister's behavior, so we need not focus on this. Amendments to Forest Act repressive. Here remember, Indian Forest Act 1927. It has made all the occupants of the forest as illegal. So it made the forest as a state property. Anyone who is using the forest produce or staying in the forest is an illegal occupant. At a single pen stroke, all the tribals and forest dwellers were made illegal occupants of the forest through this act. Now this is being amended. In this amendment, the forest bureaucracy is further strengthened, and then it is also giving weapons to the forest bureaucracy. So it means rather than changing what the Britishers did, we are trying to strengthen the forest bureaucracy further. This is what has been described by Brunda Karat as militarizing the forest conservation, centralization, commercialization, and criminalization blueprint is this Amendment Act. Remember these two statements. The Forest Act is militarizing the forest conservation, and it is a blueprint for centralization, commercialization, and criminalization. CBI searches premises of lawyers collective. There is an act for that is Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. According to this, any NGO receiving more than 10 lakh rupees as foreign donations, it has to report it to the Home Ministry. In this case, human rights activist Indira Jaising and her husband Anand Grover, they have an NGO that is called Lawyers Collective. So the FCRA recognition is being done away with for Lawyers Collective way back in 2016. For the funds they have received before 2016, Home Ministry says that there are violations and they have filed a case against it. So, in the larger context, civil society is being put to control through use of the state institutions, and this is not in the good spirit of democracy. So the Foreign Contributions Regulation Act is becoming an instrument to control the civil society in India. Same Foreign Contributions Regulation Act was relaxed to attract the funds for the political parties. The same thing is tightened for the civil society organizations. Observe that. Finally, thank you very much. Have a great day. All the best.